Thank you for agreeing to talk to me. I'm very interested, obviously, from my past work in how civilization works and big meta concepts, and I'm not a scientist, so I rely on people like yourself to explain things to me, and then I try to build bridges to the general public about what is actually happening. And as we know, there's, I'm drilling in lately to materials, energy, and which is the crux of the matter, and how things are made and what we need to make them. And recently I've, come upon the issue around metals and energy storage and the lack of available minerals for what we envision in terms of having renewable energy, AI, all of the things that we need. It's becoming very clear that while Earth does have these minerals, they're not readily available on the surface to be utilized in production of these materials and things that we need, right? So now I'm trying to figure out, and I might do a full feature movie on this, is, how are we going to get to where we want to go? And what are the things that we need to make, and how are we making them? And I ran across your article on my newsfeed about MOST, which was the molecular solar thermal energy storage. But there's obviously a lot of other things that you're doing with your research institute. So I just thought, hey, maybe we can have a conversation and see where that goes. And I guess to start, just who are you and how did you arrive at the work that you do, and what does your research institute do?
Yeah, great. So my name is Kasper Moth-Poulsen. I'm a professor in nanomaterials chemistry, and I'm located at the Polytechnical University of Catalonia in Spain. I'm originally from Denmark, but the last 3 years I've been living here in Barcelona, which is a great place to live. So exactly what you said is driving some of my motivation. So if you have oil, for example, it has been driving our civilization, oil and coal, but it has been located at only some places on the planet, right? So it's only a few places that have access to these natural resources, and they're also depletable. So we are consuming all the oil and coal, and if you look at a little bit longer perspective, there's only enough for 50 or a few hundred years more, then that's over. And then of course there's the pollution end of this, like the CO2 emissions and all that. And then it's correct that people are of course developing new energy technologies, and it's super exciting and it's really changing our societies for the better, with cleaner air, better cars, electric cars, solar cells and wind. And it's coming together to some extent. Of course there are some bumps on the road and some counter movements and so on, but it's all going that direction. But then when you start to think about it, there are some problems, and that is the sort of the finite resources also here. You don't have infinite metals. You don't have, like for wind, for cars, you need, for the engines, you need these super magnets that are made with rare earths. For the batteries, often you need some cobalt, which is mined in Congo or other places. And so therefore, it's not so straightforward just to say, okay, now we got the technology to make great batteries and wind turbines. We're going to roll that out for everything. and often, because we simply will reach some kind of materials limitations. And then my job as a scientist is sort of to explore what is possible and develop technologies not for tomorrow, but maybe for the day after tomorrow, or like for the long term, and try to see, can we do something very different? I'm also very much interested in near-term applications, and I've made several startup companies, so it's not like that, but my main theme is looking a little bit more beyond the horizon and trying to develop something that is radically new. And that said, everything we do, there's no guarantee that it will be good enough, it will be cheap enough, that will be working well enough. But that's how it is when you are a university researcher and you try to make something radically new. Our job is to explore the unknown in materials and in science, and not just develop technologies based on what is known today. and that is where the molecular solar thermal idea comes in. It's a very old idea, actually. The first research papers came from 1906 or something like that. So it's more than 100 years old. So this is a beautiful idea. It has been there for more than 100 years. But it has been difficult to develop systems that are efficient enough. And then it has been explored, small activity up to the 70s and 80s. And then not so much more happened. And then when I was a little bit younger than now, I decided I want to work on this, and I actually moved to California to a research group at the UC Berkeley, and there I and another postdoc, as it's called, we worked on this concept and sort of took a fresh look at it and tried to make some more modern materials that could do this concept. So the basic concept is that you want to take sunlight. I mean, if you take like the oil and the coal is only located in some places on Earth, but the sun shines on everyone. It shines on every country. So we want to do something with the sun. It's the most attractive source of energy on the planet. And if we could just utilize the solar energy better, there's plenty of energy in the sun. I mean, more than, I think it's in 1 hour, we get more than what we need in a whole year for all energies of the human civilization. So it's all great. But the problem comes when with the materials and the technologies to convert the solar energy to something else. So we're trying to make a material that when you shine light on it, it's converted into another material. It's so-called photoconversion. And when it does this, it stores energy. And when this energy can be stored for long periods of time, and when we want the energy out, we can trigger the energy release, and we get the energy out, and the material is converted back. So it sounds a little bit futuristic, but actually it's happening in your eyes right now. Your eye has a photochromic molecule. It's a little molecule that changes shape every time a photon is hitting your eye. Every little glimpse of light come out of your computer triggers a molecular reaction in your eye and makes you see. Our molecule work essentially the same way, except for that they store energy. and I've now been working on this for the last 12 years, 15 years approximately, and been developing these materials, and we have made some of the most efficient materials that have ever been made in this regard. And that is the short story of it, basically. We are material scientists, so we work with making materials, we explore how they work, we design new materials, and we also build different things, different mini demonstrators to visualize how it can work. So that's what we're doing.
I mean, that's very, very exciting because, again, especially with the nanotech that you're working with as well, right? So before I go back to most in that battery, why nanotechnology? Why go so small? It's always so scary for the layperson. They think like crazy robots the size of molecules that can go destroy the world. So, how does that?
So in this project, the nano is just a length scale. So nanotechnology is something that is on the length scale of nanometers, and that happens to be sort of the length scale where the molecules are active. So in our case, we are mostly making a molecular technology, but it's all the molecules are on the nanoscale. So the nanotechnology comes in mostly where we have to get the energy out, where we design some special catalysts that can react with a molecule and make them release the energy we have stored. So there's not so much scary nanotechnology here. It's mostly about creating a catalyst system with a high surface area, because when you make, I don't know how obvious it is, but if you have a big object, what is inside the object is a lot, and the surface is small. If you have a small object, the surface becomes everything, and the inside becomes very little. And that's what you want from a catalyst. You want to use as little materials as possible, and you want to do everything at the surface. That is how molecules work, catalysts work at the surface, and that's where the nano comes in. So you basically want to make things as small as possible so that everything is the surface, and that's the nano of this. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
clear. Now, I have a question. When the sun, so in terms of most,
Yeah.
and when you are dealing with those scales in, so the
Mm.
light comes in, sunlight, it's the sunlight, it's the
Yeah.
light,
Yeah.
it's the photon. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
photon is what is in and of itself not energy. Or how is it that we take a photon and turn
Oh,
it into energy that we can use?
okay.
What is
Yes.
it still a photon or does it become something else?
Something else, and that was a very good question, because there exist many different ways you can think about energy, and in the molecular solar thermal system, it has one way of functioning, and it's a little bit like this: that you've made a molecule that has a certain color, and this color it has this color because it's absorbing certain colors of the light. So the sunlight has all the colors of the rainbow, and we are trying to make molecules that can absorb as much as the rainbow colors as possible. And these rainbow colors, they represent energies of these photons. So right now, our molecule can absorb mostly in the blue and the end of the spectrum. That means the more high energy photons. And also the ultraviolet. So the ultraviolet and the blue, I mean, we all know that when we go in the sun, we are afraid of the ultraviolet. It's because it has the high energy, and that's what can destroy our DNA and give us mutations in the skin. It's because it has high energy. So our molecules right now, they are operating in the UV and the blue end, and then they are being excited at so it means that some bonds are starting to vibrate faster, and some bonds are broken, and other bonds are formed. So basically, the molecule reforms itself. It creates a different molecule that has a different shape, and this new shape that is more so-called strain. It's like a spring that is compressed and is waiting to release energy. So that is the high energy form. And then now we have stored the energy. We took the sunlight, it hit the molecule, it vibrates, it breaks, and it reforms in a new form. And then we can store it for very long periods of time. So that is one of the first things we have engineered, is we have created molecules that can keep this energy in the springs for like 20 years. So now it is sticking there. And then the next step is, okay, now we have this high energy molecule and we want the energy out. And that's where the catalyst comes. So one way to get it out is to, our molecules are liquid, so they are pumped over this catalyst system, and then the catalyst hit the molecule that captures the energy, and the energy comes out as heat, and then the original molecule is remade. So this is the cycle from original molecule, shining light on it, reforming, storing for long periods of time, going over the catalyst, getting out the heat, and then reforming again to the original, being ready to do the same again and again. So on the heart of this is that we are not consuming anything and we are not emitting anything. We're just taking in sunlight and delivering heat on demand. So we're creating a sort of a battery or a storage media that can give you heat when you need it. And it's never hot. It's only hot when you need the energy. So there's no hot material that needs to be insulated. So there exist other technologies that on the surface look similar, where you heat something and then you later want to use that heat. I mean, the simplest thing is you make a cup of tea and you have a hot cup of tea. It's not insulated. It will be cold after some time, right? You can try to put it in you can buy a more expensive cup that have a better insulation, a thermal cup. They will be hot a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, it will also be cold. So we're trying to make another technology that is not heated. We're not heating anything except when we trigger the heat release, and that's sort of the basics of that concept. Yeah.
So basically, you would use it for maybe factories that need heat for the
Yeah.
production, or maybe homes, or what do you possibly, if
Yes. So this is something that we are. I mean, a lot of things work here. So the basic concept works, the materials work, they're getting better. To reach real applications, they have to do one or two things more. The most important is people have to be ready to pay for it, or like they have to reach the price that people are ready to pay. And then of course there's some stability and safety issues and so on. But at the end of the day, a new technology has to be safer, greener, and affordable. Before that happens, nothing is happening. So we are working on verifying the different parts and hopefully getting to a stage where we can also say, okay, now we are cheaper. I mean, if you look at solar cells, when I was a child, the only solar cells I had was in my pocket calculator that had a little bit of a solar cell charging, right? They were too expensive. Yeah, you had also one of those, yes. And the same for the electric cars. I mean, electric cars have been there for 100 years, but no one could afford them. And then suddenly, the price versus performance, there's an inflection point, and suddenly it's just happening, and suddenly no one or very few wants to have the old technology, and that's we're not really there with the most technology yet, but it's just to say that in addition to the basic function that we are demonstrating, we are improving, performance goes up, price will go down. Then at the end of the day, it has to compete in a market, and it has to be cheap enough. And there we come back to where we started, maybe with the fundamentals of what materials goes in, what are these things made of. So if you build in the future a big factory for this new technology, what is going in the factory and what is coming out? And there, our materials are made exclusively of carbon and hydrogen, which is very abundant basic materials of the planet, and that is a good thing for future scale up. And we have some of the cheapest materials made, like in plastic, oils, other things are made of carbon and hydrogen. So this is something that is made on large scale and used on large scale, consumed on large scale, and can be also disposed on large scale. So these fundamentals are in principle good for our technology. We have no rare materials in the system really, but there are some steps ahead of us to make it happen. But that's sort of the basics of this, yeah.
I mean, it's so fascinating, and it's liquid. You said it's
yes.
liquid.
So today, this field that I think we can say that when I started working on it with a team in Berkeley, we were sort of the only people in the world working on it, and the first article with the name of most has my name on it because the team decided on this name. But today, luckily, we have several research groups in the world working on this, and are different ideas about how to use this concept and how to implement it. And the main part of my work has been about making a liquid system that can be pumped and stored in a tank and pumped up in some collector and then stored on large scale in the future. But there are others who are making something very exciting where they try to make a solid system that can do some of the same things, likely for some more local energy production, because then it's not so straightforward how you're going to transport it, but then you will create a local heat storage system that maybe can be used for other things. So there are other research groups are working on that, and we are also doing some work there. So we are mostly working on the liquid part, yes.
What I find most fascinating as a layperson is this idea that sunlight is not one thing, but a series of different vibrating photons, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So that's what creates the rainbow that we all understand, right?
Yeah.
So it's not one thing, it's just a stream of particles that are at different states.
Yeah, you can say that.
At all
different
times.
Energies. Yeah.
Different energy states. And so you're grabbing the blue spectrum, and then that particular vibration of energy will excite this molecule to change its shape, and in so doing, holds it in its structure, its actual structure. So then when you
Yeah,
change its structure, it releases the energy again. That's so
exactly,
interesting. I
exactly.
mean, it sounds strangely like nuclear energy, right? But not at all. Like, I mean,
No,
I know it's
no,
not, but
yeah,
right? It's an
yeah.
atomic structure
Yeah,
change.
that's the difference is that here we are changing the bonds between atoms. When nuclear energy, you're changing the atoms. So,
Ah, so you're doing the
so,
molecule level, not the atomic
well,
level.
the subatomic level. Yeah, yeah. So we
Yeah,
do the
yeah,
molecular level. So we are changing chemical bonds, like how the atoms are put together in a molecule. Where nuclear, you are destroying the core of the molecule and a core of the atom. So
yeah.
these are two different things. So we are playing with, I mean, the building blocks of nature, so to say. Like you have also a photochemical reaction. It's there's a light absorber in the plant. It's absorbing light. It's also getting excited. It's converting that energy into um, cellulose or other high energy things that the animals eat, and then we can eat the animals or we can eat the plants directly, and then we utilize that stored chemical energy, and that's how we live, right? So it's not too different from that. It's just about when we in a traditional plant-based system, we store the energy in the plants. Some animal, either we eat the plants directly or some animal eats it. That doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we convert the plant energy into CO2 and energy, and the plant converts CO2 into stored chemical energy. So if the plant becomes oil over thousands of years, when we burn the oil, we produce CO2. It's the same. So in the plant-based system that includes the oil and the gas and everything that has been through plants originally, we have exchange of materials. So the plants store the energy. Later we burn it or we consume it in the body, and through exercise we lead, and we produce CO2. So we exchange, we eat and we emit CO2. In our material, it's a closed cycle. So there's no exchange of material. Everything is inside, you can say. And that's the fundamental difference. Like in the traditional system, first you plant some a forest, you wait 1 million years, it becomes oil, and then you burn it, and you get CO2 and pollution, and you get energy, right? In our system, you have a closed system. You just shine light on it, you store the energy, and then you create the energy and recreate. But at the end of the day, it's somewhat similar chemical processes. You have absorption of light, you have storage of chemical energy, and you have release of chemical energy later. And that's what the plants are doing beautifully. And that's why they have this color also. They also use certain colors better than others, and the only light that is emitted is the green light that they're not really using. So that's how the plant works also.
It's such an
Yeah,
elegant solution. I was deep into
yeah,
biomimicry
yeah,
with Janine
yeah,
Benyus and how if we look at nature and what it's doing, we can better build materials that live
yeah,
inside the
yeah.
Earth cycle. You know, and so what an elegant solution this is. And I guess overall, how are you feeling about the trajectory of getting things like what you're learning and other people around the world to move from our fossil fuel based society to implementing and scaling things? Is do you feel I've been feeling very hopeful and inspired by the people that I've been
Mm,
meeting, and I
mm,
feel like we're
yeah.
going to thread that needle and figure it out. But how are
I
you
think this
feeling
is a
about
very
it?
good point, and I think um, like also a little bit on a philosophical level, if I should. So when when I grew up, I thought
Hmm.
a lot of things were static because the world has been for a very long time, and I had lived very short. Now I'm a little bit older, and I start to see how the world is also changing, and you see that this our energy system is really changing really fast. So you see now the implementation of wind and solar, and it's really starting to impact. We see how electric cars are changing how we do the transportation. And we also see another technology coming in, which I think is super exciting, is the so-called power to X technology, where you, in an artificial way, with the use of electricity, convert CO2 into fuels or other chemicals. So you try to use the strength of the renewables, producing cheap electricity, and then you use this electricity to do something you could not do before. And I think it's happening now, and it's really exciting. There are a lot of exciting projects related to this in Sweden, where I've been living for 12 years. They are building like new systems for how to make steel, and steel is a massive part of Sweden's CO2 emissions. I think it's between 5 and 10% of everything is. All the pollution they make is in steel, and they're making new projects where they base it on hydrogen and electricity, and that changes completely the pollution footprint of steel. There are projects in other countries where you try to convert CO2 into aircraft fuels. Okay, the aircraft will still, then you try to create a almost CO2 neutral airplane industry, at least it will help a lot. And these technologies are actually being scaled, and this is something that was in the research lab not long time ago. And so I think as a world society, we are seeing in our time a lot of implementation of radically new technology, which is super exciting. So I'm hopeful also because I see that things are happening, but for many years it felt that nothing was happening, and then suddenly it's happening. And I think it's when the new technologies reach a maturity level and cost level where it makes sense, then the ball starts to roll.
And I find it interesting. I just finished a film on carbon
Yeah,
dioxide removal and discussed
yeah,
utilization, also the
yeah,
sunlight to fuel, basically, which I thought was very exciting. And then I got hit by some renewable energy people that get really pretty pissed off and furious that one could suggest that, because they said that the best use of our energy is to deliver renewable energy to people and not use it to make
that's
fuels.
probably correct.
But
There's probably some truth in it that there are these new processes are not super efficient today, but some, depending on where you are on the scale, I mean, some sort of environmental people who are very concerned about the environment think that we should all probably go out in the forest and live a quiet life there and then not do so much else, right? And harvest the
yeah,
mushrooms and then the leaves and then live from that. But others would say, okay, we want to continue to live our modern life with the modern technologies, but we want to do it a little bit better. We don't want to waste the planet. We still want to go on vacation. We want to be able to travel. Want to meet people. And depending on where you are on the scale, the answer will be different. And of course, the people all out to one side here, they will fight you for proposing to make renewable technologies that allow you to fly on an airplane. But the people in the middle will say, oh, great, then I can fly and still not destroy the planet. And the people to the other side will say, I don't want any new technologies. Let's just burn the oil and see what happens. So it depends a little bit on where you are on this scale. Yeah. And you
yes,
will probably
it is.
pick
It's true. I
opposition
find
from
it
no
is
matter
too.
what you do. You will pick opposition either from the people who think we should change nothing to the people who says let's sit in a teepee out in the prairie, and then someone who's in between.
Yeah, it's true. And that's where the curiosity
Yeah.
gets you into those conversations. But I guess the other thing I would say, is there anything down the road that given that this is something that you think about
Yeah.
your entire life, what other energies are out there that are science fiction that you think that maybe that humans might be able to figure out that would be revolutionary? Do you ever think about that?
Yes, I mean, if I should go really outside my own field, we can start with a little bit closer to my field. So we have some battery technologies today that are the foundation of electric cars. Like the lithium-ion batteries are amazing and they can do a lot of things. But there are also other technologies coming in called, for example, flow batteries. They have a little bit lower energy density, so they're probably not going to be used in cars, but they are going to be used maybe in houses or in larger applications where weight is not the problem, where you can have that they're a little bit bigger. It's not a problem, but they can still be efficient type of batteries, and they're being tested a lot right now. Then I think the whole shipping industry is super exciting because we don't think about it, but that is where the bulk of the world's trade is moved by big ships, right? And they're super polluting and they're not good today. And there are some really strong movements of making them green or making new fuels or new technologies for moving the ships. I think that is super exciting. And then so these are some of the areas I think is super exciting. Then of course you have nuclear and fusion. People have been talking about it for 100 years, and maybe at some point they will make a breakthrough and become economically viable again, or maybe suddenly the technology will be there. This is a completely different group of scientists and completely different group of people working on these technologies. There are no molecules in that, but it will also be exciting to see when or if these new technologies will happen. And this is the whole name of this game of new energies. I mean, a lot of people are coming with big promises, and I am also coming with my big promises, of course. But it's not so straightforward, even for the experts, to calculate or figure out what will be the winning future technologies, and it almost becomes sort of a matter of opinion or who you talk to. And I think it's important to explore different types of new technologies because it's not always so straightforward to predict the improvements that can be made with certain effort. So in our little team here, we have improved some metrics of our materials more than 100 times, and maybe a further improvement of 50% or a factor of 2 is enough to suddenly make it viable. But of course, we're also now getting to a stage where it's more difficult to improve. So are we creative enough to create that next step? And the same counts for the other technologies. I mean, it's very difficult to predict exactly what the next little technology improvement that makes it just cheap enough or just good enough. So so for me as a university professor, when I have that hat on, I would say you have to invest in different new technologies and get people the creative freedom to explore, because you cannot know fully what the outcome of this exploration will be, but some new things will happen and improve our society.
Yeah, I agree with you on, where people sit is what they're going to hear or lean into. But I think overall, we have to fund innovation.
Yeah, of course, like politically, we get a little bit afraid of what we hear from the US right now, but I believe in innovation, and I think long term, I mean, even if you're very, very hardliner, only talk about money, innovation is the driver of money. Technology is the driver of our society, and if we don't want that, then I don't know. So yes.
It's for that reason I'm not worried. I'm not worried because I think innovation is where the breakthroughs are. It's where the money is. So
yeah,
I think
exactly.